Hello. Hi. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being here for the celebration of William Michael Winter, we all knew as Mick. It's it's so great to see so many people here to celebrate and remember. We're going to hear from some people who Kathy and Joanna specifically have asked to talk and prepare some things. There's going to be some music. There's a great, some videos, slideshow, as you've seen. Some people have sent in videos from all over the world. And then towards the end, we are going to open it up. So if anyone would like to come up and share a short story, there's going to be time for that. So yes, thanks again to everyone for being here. And start with Kathy.
I wasn't expecting that. You threw me. Thank you, Max. That's my nephew, Max. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my Mick, the Mick that I spent 38 years with. To know Mick was to understand that his life work was linking people together to exchange ideas and a shared common humanity. Perhaps this drive grew out of his experience as a trainer in Eureka, our mystical school that focuses on the interconnectedness of all life and sustained our relationship for 38 years. In the mid-1980s, Mick linked his fraternity brothers, Eurekans, and other groups on The Well, the first online community discussion site. Then he linked up his colleagues at the Doctors Company, and finally through his creation of NapaNet, he linked every school kid in Napa, their teachers, and the community at large. Mick constantly refined his written communication skills. His search for meaning led to his academic career and the writing of his thesis on memes, morphic fields, and movie lines. He hoped that if he could unlock the secret to why movie lines become an integral part of our culture, he might have a key in his own writing to inspire the best in humanity. But he never took himself too seriously. He reveled in satire and had a delicious sense of humor. He made me laugh every day. His wit and humor kept us going for 38 years. He was an incredible idealist who believed mostly in the goodness of people. That's why he would be so happy if he were here today to see grammar school friends, meet spiritual friends, family, fellow activists, writers, and work friends. Already a talented writer, when I met him, Mick honed his craft with computers. In 1981, when Joanna was born, Mick bought his first Commodore 64 computer. My earliest memories are of Mick holding Joanna over his left shoulder while typing on his keyboard with his free hand. The last few years, he did the same thing with his beloved cat, Sophie, who died on Halloween. In 1985, Mick became an early user of The Well, the Whole Earth electronic link founded by Stuart Brand of the Whole Earth catalog. Mick wrote the first user guide to The Well. I had no idea what The Well did, but Mick was so excited at the idea of people being able to talk to each other on this new internet. He immediately began to host virtual conferences. Suddenly, he and other forward thinkers had a forum to share ideas about mysticism, computing, or politics. Mick was inspired by the possibility that true democratic government could emerge if everyone was connected and can talk to each other. Mick had the ability always to see the big picture and to look 10 or 20 years ahead. The downside of being a visionary was that he sometimes had doubters like me question his vision and sometimes his sanity. It frustrated Mick that his futuristic ideas didn't often bring financial reward. In 1989, he wrote a booklet on ecology called Eco Tips. The same time he released it, 50 Ways to Save the Planet came out. His book was just as good, but he didn't have a publisher. Over the years, he sold some websites and made a living income on Google Ads and book sales until Google changed their search algorithms. With that, his 20-year-old insomnia site and booklet plummeted from first place. Fortunately, a New York composer set the words from the insomnia booklet to music, and the cantata was performed. We have it. We may try and play it later for you. But it was in his last 3 years that Mick's brilliance was rewarded by recognition from his Australian professors, and he had financial security while writing his PhD thesis. His professor and thesis supervisor, Tara Brabazon, posted on Facebook upon hearing of his death, "The remarkable writer, the deep thinker, the comedic timing, the intellectual power, the passion for life. She really got him." And he delighted in matching wits with her and her husband, Professor Steve Redhead, his other advisor. Mick and Tara found each other by accident while Mick was researching international master's degrees programs. He found Tara's program in creative media and emailed her at the University of Brighton in England. Tara wrote back enthusiastically to say she knew of his work. Her response was so quick that I was a bit skeptical. Eventually, we learned that Tara really did know Mick's work from research she did while writing a book about Australian wine tourism. She had come across Mick's The Napa Valley book about wine tourism in Napa. Mick's initial email to Tara led to what Tara called the best master's thesis she had ever supervised. As a result, she offered Mick the opportunity to write a doctoral thesis. And if Tara's intention comes to fruition, Mick will be Dr. Winter posthumously. Mick adopted new technologies and gadgets with gusto. He especially loved gadgets if they connected to the internet, hence the sous vide cooking tool that uses the internet. 2 years ago, he signed up for one of the first Amazon Echoes and gave it to me as an anniversary present. I had no idea what the black cylinder was for. Soon, we were both astounding our visiting friends by calling out, "Alexa, what's the weather for today?" Or, "Who was a Supreme Court justice appointed by President Obama?" One of the most recent arrivals was a new light bulb that can be controlled by Alexa. I haven't tried it yet. In the hospital, I told Mick how much I loved my new Echo Dot, a baby Alexa that he gave me for Christmas. It can set an alarm, play music, and tell me what time it is. When our internet service went out the week after Mick died, I had to teach myself how to reconnect both Alexas. Not only was Mick a loving friend and husband, but he was an incredible father. Just before meeting Mick, a psychic predicted that I would meet someone who fit me like a hand fit a glove. Mick and I confessed to each other that the first time we spoke on the phone, we fell instantly in love with each other's voices. Within days, we contrived a first date. During my pregnancy with Joanna, it didn't really hit him that he was about to become a dad at age 40 until our friends threw us a baby shower. When I opened the first tiny baby item, a photo captured the expression of terror and surprise at the realization that he'd be a father. My first memory of Mick, the father, was the day we brought Joanna home from the hospital after her 4-day stay in an incubator for jaundice. Mick carried Joanna from room to room of our Yountville house and explained what each room was for and pointed out important items. Joanna's eyes were wide open, and she watched him with interest. He loved his daughter and indulged and protected her with ferocity. He spent many years at home writing and being a house husband and chief parent while I worked outside the home. Mick was a generous and patient husband who bore my mundane complaints with equanimity. When he called me from the emergency room to say that he would be getting a bed in the hospital around 2 a.m., he mentioned the ER doctor asked, "Is your wife supportive?" Mick answered, "I married a saint." The doctor replied, "I married one of those too." We laughed at that. I signed many cards to Mick from St. Kathryn, a joke about my pretend martyrdom. Although Mick didn't always have the home front covered the way I wanted, His emotional support was boundless, and his deep love enabled me to go out in the world and slay dragons. We were soulmates, and our profound spiritual connection gave us the freedom to work independently and support each other at the same time. He was busy saving the world with his writing and often forgot to take out the garbage or go shopping. He could be a bit absent-minded about day-to-day living, but if you asked him anything about computers or the internet, he could tell you how to use them with amazing clarity and understanding. He had a wisdom in the depth of his soul that made up for any day-to-day annoyances. I've learned new details about Mick's boundless generosity from letters and emails sent by people he helped with websites or personal issues. I am astounded at his capacity to do good for others while being a productive scholar and writer. He never ran out of ideas. On his computer are plans for several articles and books. For the past few years, he'd been collecting studies that exposed the dangers of restaurant noise, and that was going to be his next book. In addition to talking about Mick's humor, compassion, and kindness, people noted the twinkle in his eye. In the hospital on the day he died, I curled up next to him, and though he appeared to be sleeping, he opened his eye closest to me. A giant, exaggerated wink. I asked, "Was that a dirty old man wink?" He smiled and said, "Yes, it was." But I've since realized it was much, much more than that. It was Mick's way of saying that he was okay, and so was I. Thank you.
So one of the books, Eco Tips, that was mentioned, that's amongst several books that we have out over there. So please take a look at some of the books. I picked that one up last night, actually, and I took a photo of this. When you open the book, it says, "Why I wrote this, because I couldn't find one that anybody else wrote." And I thought that was particularly fitting of Mick.